Oh, we already had it on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it count? Yeah. All right.
Is it on?
Yeah. A smart guy once told me a long time ago that a wise man learns from his mistakes. An even wiser man learns from other people's mistakes. So,
I know where this story is going to
Yeah.
go to. It sounds like I know it already.
yeah. All right, let's start over again. So I was going to say that, and then we'll go into
Nice, yeah.
learn from our mistakes. That the reason, you know, a big reason why we do these again is to help folks out, and that, you know.
Yeah,
hopefully
so
they
put
can
that
learn.
all in the beginning before I even start saying, well, what actually happened and how it went about it.
Yeah.
So do that first, yeah.
In this episode, you're going to find out what happens to Ike's Kawasaki 450 and what it's going to take to fix it. If you like this content, do me a favor and please hit that subscribe button. Told me that a wise man learns from his mistakes, and an even wiser man learns from others' mistakes. So why are we doing this video today?
Because Ike was not a wise man.
Alright. So learn from our mistakes. So we have one of Ike's bikes here that we had a little mishap on, and so we're going to have to fix a little small thing that happened. So what?
Not that small.
Yeah.
It's cost a lot of money this far already, and it's still not fixed.
Well, these things happen. So tell us what happened.
Well, I mean, you know, firstly the bike wouldn't start.
So you maybe had a dead battery?
Yep.
All right.
So I thought I'll bump start it. Eventually I did get it to start by bump starting it, but I had to actually, while I was bump starting it, while going, I had to press the starter motor button with a battery in it, the dead battery in it.
Right.
So that's it. And the minute I pressed the button while I was pulling it, boom, it fired up straight away.
Right.
But then from then on, even though I replaced the battery, I replaced the relay switch, and I replaced the complete starter motor, and I'm still sitting where it will not start.
Right. So what I think happened, and don't tell me if I'm wrong, is we started off, we had a dead battery, and it must have been dead enough to where it needs that battery to run the fuel pump.
To initially start it.
Right,
yes.
to get it going. And so you were bump starting it, and I think you even had somebody pull you a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it was turning over, and it never would fire because it didn't have enough juice in the battery to get the fuel pump going. When you hit that starter, I think you were just doing it to see if that would do it. You bumped that starter to see if it would initiate that fuel pump. And so what happened was the gears lined up, but you were already moving the transmission. And so I think what ended up happening is it might have banged together, and now we've got an issue and it won't do anything. So today we're going to pull the flywheel cover off, pull the flywheel, and see what's going on behind the flywheel, because I think we've got a little issue.
Because that's where the main gear is, that actually does the engaging
Right.
behind the flywheel.
So you pulled the cover off over here where the starter gear is, and it's spinning with a new battery.
Yeah.
But it's not
engaging.
right. It's not
To turn the
turning
motor.
it's not turning the flywheel.
Yeah.
So we might have a little issue going on behind the flywheel.
So I took a little hammer and I tapped on the starter motor. Come to find out, that was not a very smart move, because it broke all the little magnets out from inside the starter motor. So that's the reason why I had to replace the whole starter motor now as well.
All right, so we've loosened a lot of this stuff up so it kind of speeds things along. So a lot of these are already out. And with this, we're going to have to take hydraulic clutch assembly out to get then this cover on the starter gear. So this spins when you bump the starter. It turns this gear, that turns this larger gear, that will turn this gear. Now notice this one should pop out and get a hold of this one gear. So maybe that might be where issue lies. Alright, so it's in there pretty tight. And it's got obviously the flywheel has a magnet on it. So, and as you can see, we're missing the seal that's already been taken off. So what we've got to do is we'll have to pull this nut, and we'll use a tool that basically holds the flywheel as we loosen this nut. And then once that nut's off, then we have a flywheel pulley and a puller, and it will thread on to this portion, and then there'll be another bolt that goes inside the portion that's threaded on to the flywheel, and it'll push on the crankshaft, and it'll then pull the pulley or the flywheel off.
Okay, which is the one that's
the issue,
loose?
right? The issue is this here, right? This should be this should be out. So the starter spins the gears that I showed you before, which then spins this, and then there's another set of gears back behind this one that turns these gears. So, how do you get this off? So all of this, so there's a shaft here. So all this gear assembly that's on the starter turns this, then this gear turns this portion. And it's loose, if you can see, which it should not be. It should not be loose like that. So we've got to pull the flywheel off to get to this to see what's going on. So what we have is a pulley holder, and these pins will go inside the holes inside the flywheel. And so what that'll do is these pins will go inside here and hold the flywheel, and then this nut has to come off. And on this particular bike, that nut is a 17 millimeter. So what I'm doing is I'm using Ike's foot peg to hold basically the ratchet, and then I'm going to extend, because usually these are on pretty tight, and so I'm going to extend this by using another ratchet, which is a 1/2 inch, and then I'll put the pins in to hold. So we'll get it up here, and so basically I'm going to turn the flywheel basket down, which will hold the ratchet and loosen the nut that's holding the flywheel on. All right.
Perfect.
So
There
it's
it is.
loosening.
Yeah.
All right. So it should be loose now. Yep. next trick is, this is a Motion Pro flywheel puller, and there's different types. There's some that fit on the outside and will push against the crank and pull the crankshaft and pull the flywheel off. I don't typically like that because it puts a lot of stress on the flywheel, so I generally like this one that Motion Pro puts out. And so it'll thread on, so we'll have to run it out. You don't have to take this off, but I want to kind of feel it as it.
And very fine thread then.
Yeah, and you want to get it on there so that it has a lot to get a hold of. And then what will happen is, once this is on, all right, this bolt will go inside there and push against the shaft, pulling on the flywheel. So I'm not going to lead you on and tell you that this is the first time we're going to be taking this off. We already took this off because we were so baffled as to why this one gear was so loose. So we went ahead and pulled the flywheel off to find out what was going on. So I stuck the flywheel back on so that you can see how it comes off. And like I said before, this is the Motion Pro flywheel puller, and it's threaded onto the threads of the flywheel, and then this bolt will push against the crankshaft. So we're going to do that, and then we'll pull this flywheel off. And so what you want to do is tighten it, and it will push and it'll the bolt will push in, pulling the flywheel off. All right, so when we pulled the flywheel off before, all these fell out and into the case, and this gear was loose. And the spring, there's a little bitty spring, if you can see, was all chewed up. I pulled up this part on the internet in a schematic, and so this cage and this cage go together, and then all these, and I think they look like little cams, line the inside of the backside of this flywheel, and they're all lined up inside. And then this groove, they're all held in by this spring. The spring is wrapped around and it holds them together all inside here, and then this part right here, this cage, holds them all together inside there. And so then this part of the gear then will fit inside there. And then when you get inertia going, I think it adjusts this gear so that it spins the whole flywheel as you hit the starter. So these little cams will turn, and you can see they're kind of oblong, and they're a little beat up. So I think something happened. This tab broke and this part came off, and then it chewed up this little spring, and then all these pieces came apart. So when we pulled this flywheel off, all these parts fell out. So to fix this, we're gonna have to get this part, and it'll come with this tab and that tab, and then all these little cams inside there with the spring wrapped around it. So what we're gonna have to do is pull these bolts out, and then this ring will come off, and then this other part of this tab will come off. And so when we get the new part, all this will be together. So this is the schematic that I pulled up on the internet. This is the flywheel. This is that ring that is bolted on the back of the flywheel that I showed you. And then this is that cam carrier piece. And it goes inside the back of the flywheel. and then this ring holds it on to the flywheel by a set of tabs, and right on the outside edge are a set of tabs that hold that on there. And so this came apart in Ike's bike. Now you know what's happened to the bike. Ike has since contacted Jeff up at Brewer Cycles and has the part ordered. So in the next episode, hopefully we can get this thing running and back on the track. And do me a favor, if your battery goes dead, please replace it as soon as possible. And using a hammer to work on your bike is a bad idea.